This is the servicing video on a Kenmore 10, how to oil it and get all of the correct oiling points. First thing you got to do is disassemble the top. There's a total of 3 screws. The first 2 are going to be captive, so they'll stay with the actual cover. The third one is your bobbin wind stop, which will come off with the actual bobbin wind stop knob, which is this guy right here. This is adjustable, so when you go to put it back on, you will have to set your bobbin wind point again. Once the screws are free, lift the top off. And inside here, we're looking for a total of 7 lube points that we're going to hit with a single drop of a high quality oil. In my case, I'm just using a little bit of gun oil. So for the most part, you're going to look for the pits on the top of any of the camshafts. So we're going to do 1 drop here, and literally just 1 drop. You're going to have to crank this around a little bit periodically. We're going to do another drop here. We're going to do 1 drop on the surface of the cam lobe, and because that one's an open space, we're going to turn it as we go. So just spread that lube around, make sure that it's on the forks. And you should see it nice and a nice gleam off the surface once it's fully lubed. The rest of the points that we're going to hit are mostly the interface points with the shaft. So we're going to put 1 drop out here, right by that collar, and just let it drop in. We're going to do another drop, about half a drop up here. So literally, if you can see that, just half a drop right on that guy, because this is out in your stepper case. You don't want it dripping down onto the actual fabric as you're sewing. The other points are further down in, a little bit harder to see. So again, you want an oiler that has a nice needle on it. We're going to put a drop down in here and 1 right here. And then on the shaft, you're going to put half a drop up top, and way down below, you're going to put half a drop on the bottom. Once you've got everything in there, you can already hear that things are a lot quieter now. We're going to cycle this a few times, and I'm actually going to turn it on to do it. I'm just going to let it run for a minute, spread all that lube around, and then we're going to go through and wipe off the excess, especially around the stepper case, to make sure that we don't have anything that's going to get on our fabric. So simple paper towel, and just wipe that shaft off entirely. Get as much of the length out as you can, just wipe it off. And that should keep you from getting oil all over your fabrics as you're sewing. So again, just let it run for a minute so that it can work the lube around. Anywhere that you see a cam riding on a moving shaft, anywhere that you see a shaft spinning inside of a carriage, you want to oil at about every 50 hours of use. When you've used your machine for at least 100 hours, and about every 100 hours thereafter, you also want to come in with a high quality grease, just a clear petroleum-based grease. High quality gun greases work really well for this. You'll want to lube all the camshafts, anywhere that there's a geared interface, anywhere that there's higher abrasion. This doesn't want to use oil, this wants to use grease, because the lube needs to stay where it is. You don't want it to drift anywhere, and you want it to stay nice and wet. So your camshafts, you'll just take something like a brush and a high quality grease, rub a film on there. You can see that this one's still wet, it's still nice and shiny, because I last did this lube about 50 hours ago. So we'll cut here, and we'll move to the bottom of the machine, because there's a couple areas in the bobbin case that you need to pay attention to as well. Okay, so here we are at the bottom of the machine. I've already reassembled the top. Assembly is just the reverse of disassembly. So we've got 4 screws down here that we need to pop. The first one is the one that actually holds the extension foot on. And a nice ratcheting screwdriver is a really good tool to have, because it makes it a lot easier to do this. lttstore.com. This is the boring part, folks. These screws are not captive. They all will come off separate. Your 2 longer screws are going to go here. Keep the one in the foot so you just don't lose track of it. And then the shortest one is what screws the base plate to the bobbin case cover. So once you got it loose, lift open your bobbin case cover, slide the whole thing out, you'll see that there's channels here. It slides up into the frame. Set that aside. So down here, as we said before, there are places where you're going to have shafts that are riding against cams, and you've got shafts riding into bearings or bushing areas. So again, if you grab your advancer and you give it a turn, you can see where everything moves. So we've got one oscillating arm here. This is your feed dog actuator. And you've got another oscillating cam arm here, and this is the lifting mechanism for the bobbin case, as well as the main shaft driving the bobbin carriage. So we're going to stop with the needle as high up as possible, and if you look way down in there in the bobbin case, you can see the bobbin case arm moving back and forth. You want to stop with that as far to the right as possible. So now we're going to start by removing the bobbin case. We're going to release these two arms. That'll free up the bobbin carriage. Grab the center spindle and pull both pieces out at the same time. Down inside the bobbin case, you'll see that there's one extra part that we're going to have to lube, and that is the actual arm that cycles back and forth. And we're going to use a very spare amount of oil here. So again, about half a drop. We're going to start there. And you want to see it just get onto the metal surface, and then it'll wick in. Okay, so I got my half drop on there. I'm immediately going to cycle that through because I do not want that spreading to any of the surfaces that thread could come in contact with. Now, you do have other moving surfaces here. You can see the feed dogs moving back and forth. We're not going to oil those. Those are polished surfaces where they do interact with each other. And where they don't interact, there's just enough of a gap for it to not be a problem. However, the feed dog cam that the lifter rides on, we are going to put a drop of oil on, and this is going to be a full drop. So we're going to drop that guy in there, and immediately we're going to cycle it because we want it to stay on that cam and lobe. We do not want it moving around. Now, that looks like a little too much oil to me, so what I'm going to do is take my paper towel. I'm going to make a nice sharp corner with it that I can get down in there. And I'm just going to pick up that excess oil. Rub it around a little bit. I promise enough oil to stay on there. You can see that there's just barely a film, barely a meniscus that you can see. I don't know if it shows up on the camera or not. Okay, next we're going to come out to this interface between the locking collar, the lobe collar, and the shaft. We're going to put drop right in there, and again you'll see it form a meniscus. Immediately start working it in, and it'll wick itself in. Now, the other parts that you need to worry about occasionally, again every about 100 to 200 hours, is the gearing mechanisms in here. So we'll finish the removal of the bottom case cover. Curse whoever invented flatheads. Set one aside. Set two aside. If you've ever replaced the belt on your sewing machine, then you've been up in here. Quick tip, as we're taking everything apart, make sure you're wiping any dust off the surfaces. The dust can get up into the grease and it'll cause it to get hard over time. It can also build up around all of your oiling surfaces and just make it kind of messy. And eventually, if you don't clean it often enough, it will start making your fabrics dirty. So the remainder of the mechanisms that we're looking at here that only need to be, again, every 100 hours or so because they cycle back and forth. You can see the minimal movement here. Any of these camshafts, anywhere that there's a pinhole, you're going to put one full drop of oil. See it form that meniscus and give it a couple cycles. You're going to see that this will not go anywhere. The good news is this is under a separate cover and there's actually an oil well underneath the motor to catch any excess oil. So a couple more places. I'm going to bring this cam around just so I can get to it. I'm going to put one drop of oil in there, one drop of oil down here where the shaft cycles. And we're going to run it back and forth a few times. Those are the only extra places that are under here that you really need to oil. And again, this should be done every 1 to 200 hours, or anytime you change your belt. If anybody has any questions, drop them in the comments. Don't worry about liking and subscribing. I don't make enough videos for it to count.